Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. It may be hard to believe, but discrimination is still a problem in the housing market. Minorities are often treated differently and unfairly when trying to rent an apartment or secure a loan to buy a home. So it's important to know your rights. Our first guests participated in a recent forum on housing bias held at Wayne State University. Please welcome Al Young, the coordinator of investigations and testing at the Fair Housing Center of Metropolitan Detroit, and attorney Steve Tomkowiak, who specializes in lending discrimination and other fair housing issues. Thanks for being here. So I guess I'm not necessarily surprised that that people still encounter discrimination, but my I think shock comes more from it being so overt. I mean, I think we tend to think of discrimination as something that's a little more subtle now and a little more hidden. I think your work really suggests that it's not always that way.
It's not always that way. Well, at the Fair Housing Center of Metropolitan Detroit, what we do is we investigate unlawful housing discrimination based upon our testing. Testing is like home seekers who pose as home seekers, actors and actresses that pose as home seekers. They go out and what they do is they actually pose as home seekers, after which we get testing results. After the testing result, we do comparison. And in comparison, you'd be surprised what the comparisons is. Some may be based upon race, some is religion, some is disability. Disability now is one of our major ones.
Is that one of the big, yeah.
It's one of our big ones, is disability based upon, they don't want to give a person a loan because they're disabled, not knowing that they have well enough income to
that
secure.
they're working and can pay it back, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They have stable income.
Right, right. And so you're testing all over Metro
We
Detroit.
test all over Metropolitan Detroit
And
area.
do you find that
suburb.
it's sort of a uniform issue, or are there certain areas
There's certain areas that we really find testing, the results of testings as far as Livonia and Farmington Hills and Warren, Michigan, those areas, the suburbs, St. Clair Shore, we find testing more so different with race.
Yeah, right. And let's make it clear, Steve, none of this is acceptable. The law does not allow for any of this kind of behavior or discrepancy.
No, and with the testing evidence, the testers are matched up. They're matched up with the same criteria or script that they follow. For example, the black tester will have income of $45,000. The white tester could have income of $43,000. The black tester could have length of employment is 12 years. White tester could be 8 years. So on each credit score, black tester could have a 700 credit score, white tester 680. So on every criteria, the black tester is given better qualifications.
Right.
Yet you see differences that are occurring. And there is a certain degree of denial. I'm concerned about the two extremes, some that feel everything is discrimination. And the other side I'm very concerned about as well, that those that want to pretend that everything is just fine.
Right.
And when the testers go out, they coordinate when they'll do their site visit. That's all. That's the only discussion that they have. They do their visits independently. They turn in their report form, and it comes to Al. Al will then do the comparison. And you find out the black tester spent 15, 20 minutes with the loan officer, very little information given, and basically sent on their way. The white tester spent an hour and a half. They've discussed everything in detail, from the credit score requirement to loan programs, down payments, whole 9 yards. And at the end of the day, you realize, well, wait a minute, there's one borrower that the lender really wanted to make the loan to, and the other one was not quite welcome.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And how often are you seeing that with lenders? I mean, I would think that would be less than with rentals, right? Or no?
Comparable. You would think
Really?
It would be less.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what amazes me.
Yeah, I mean, that's a much more regulated part of the housing market is loans. So you would think that would occur less.
Right. I mean, it's a little bit simpler in a rental context. They'll tell, a white tester, well, we have an apartment available right now, come in, and they'll tell the black tester, well, check back with us next week, or put you on a waiting list.
Right.
With lending, it's a little bit more nuanced than that, because there's a lot more factors that they go through with it.
Yeah.
But yet, and then too, they're doing testing in response to complaints. Occasionally, they'll do survey testing, random testing. They may, receive a grant or something to do that kind of testing, but otherwise they do complaint testing. Someone brings a complaint.
Someone says, this happened to me.
I have a question about how I was treated by a lender.
Right.
Or how I've been treated at an apartment complex, and that's when they'll do the testing.
Right, right.
And that's our major. When people, sometimes they don't know that they have been discriminated against. And we always tell them to be suspicious. If something doesn't feel right, you go in a place and they don't just treat you right, be suspicious. It's easy to just come and say, hey, look, I don't think they treated me right. Then we can actually test. A lot of times we cannot go out and test a place because, or we don't know if they're discriminating against someone because no one said anything.
Yeah, yeah.
No one say, hey, I think they might have treated me right, different than they have treated. We look for different treatments.
Right.
You can have some complexes that treat everybody bad.
Right, right.
And then you have some that treat people different. That's what we look for. We look for the difference in treatment.
So if I'm a person looking for a rental apartment, if I'm a person trying to get a loan, how do I identify the things that should raise my suspicion? Or things that I should just ignore?
Yeah, and then that's the tough one. In recent years, people are getting more sensitive to it, but there really was a absence of complaint activity, people not recognizing it. One of the key things, and there was a case started through the Fair Housing Center where the borrower, black applicant, the loan officer wouldn't shake his hand, and a white couple came in, he shook their hand. That made him suspicious. So there were a series of false reasons that were given to him as he went through the application process, and that's what raised the questions in his mind. Right. What I look to is, the first thing is, do you meet the underwriting criteria? And what people I think are unaware of is that whether it's a conventional loan, if there's Fannie Mae guidelines are online, for FHA loans, those guidelines are online, same thing for VA, any kind of loan program, the underwriting guidelines are online. Match up your qualifications.
So you can always look to see whether
you can look and check. I can get an answer off the Fannie Mae guidelines online within a minute and a half. It's shocking how fast that is. So take a look at that. Also, it's very important for a borrower to keep all the documentation. Keep your loan application, ask for your appraisal, any processing information, the closing documents, everything. Make sure you get a good heads up to keep track of your documentation. That will really help.
Yeah, yeah. The symposium or the forum that you guys took part in, Wayne, tell me about how that went.
It went very well. We spoke on, I spoke on different cases. One of the cases I spoke on was the Whispering Wood case. And the Whispering Wood case where we did about 22 tests, and out of the 22 tests that we had did, 17 came up with evidence. And it was over a period of a couple of years. Okay. Well, after that, we actually went after the complex, and the Fair Housing Center was the complainant. And we asked the Department of Justice to go along with us. After which, we ended up settling with Whispering Wood for $725,000. He had told.
And this was a complex that
was a complex that he did not want any African Americans.
He didn't want any African Americans.
He didn't want any African Americans. He actually told a white American, "You're the person that we want to see. You are kind. We like you." And then the African American tester, he said, "Well, to fill out an application, it's going to cost you at least $325
just to fill out.
Just to fill out the application." Yeah. How ludicrous!
Yeah.
I mean,
well, that's very suspicious behavior, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That was the straw that broke the camel back.
Right. Right.
So those type of things that we talked about at Wayne State. Yeah. And then Steve had a crazy presentation.
And there's another thing which probably people are unaware of. Well, first off, your point at the beginning of the show is a good one, that there should be no differences. People should be treated the same. Right. And then you don't often know. I mean, maybe you apply an apartment complex and they say, well, come back next week, but yet you know somebody who lives there and says, oh, there's vacant units. See, that kind of thing would raise in someone's mind there's a concern. Right. It's a little bit more subtle with lending. Yeah. I give an example, case I'm working on. The borrower, black, was turned down for to purchase a property in Southfield, and it was in a condominium community. He went to a prior lender, they had an appraisal, all the comparables were from that particular community because that's the going value. Right. So then he got appraisal back for the new company that he went to. all 5 or 6 comps were from that same area, and the bank then wrote back saying, oh, you know, you have to supply comps outside that area, which is not a reasonable requirement.
No.
And it's not a requirement that a borrower does. It's the lender hires the appraiser
Right.
and gets the appraisal. So that kind of thing starts to raise red flags. So there's other ones as well. They said your income, you have to document your income. He paid on his salary, his income had been the same all the way through that time period.
Right.
So why is that being asked?
Right.
So those are the kinds of things. If you don't get satisfactory answers, then go further and inquire. Make a complaint with the Fair Housing Center in Detroit or Michigan Department of Civil Rights or HUD, and they will investigate.
And they'll look into it. Yeah.
Yes. And other key things is you get, through that process, you can get files of similar white applicants or, you know, whatever protected class you're covering.
See who.
And you compare those files and you
Yeah.
look to see what they were treated in comparison to the way the complaint was treated. And that's some of the most compelling evidence there is.
Yeah.
Um,
You know, we tend to think that in terms of the way the law works now and the way the law is written, there's no tolerance for this stuff. But obviously, it's still going on. So, are there changes we need to housing law that will help eliminate some of this stuff, or is this just practice? You know, people skirting the law or just ignoring it?
it's a great question because we do have the law on the books, and you would think that would address it.
That would be enough, right?
From a federal, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Congress is, you know, through Dodd-Frank put them in place, and that's
Right.
that's helpful as well. There's Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, which requires lenders to report their lending data. It's under the FFIEC website, and you can put in your lender, and you can analyze it on a county basis, state basis, you know, MSA basis,
Right.
even nationwide basis to see what their lending data is as to minorities and non-minorities, or whether Asian, Hispanic, whatever protected class that you want to do. But as far as enforcing the law on that, yeah, I mean, the laws are in place. I just think there's a lack of understanding about the lending process.
But how it's supposed to work.
Yeah, and that I think ties into what we did at Wayne State, was really to raise people's understanding of what the lending process, what the sales and rental process is, so that people know when they've been mistreated.
Right. You were saying that you're seeing a growth in problems with disabled applicants.
Absolutely.
Is there a gap in the law there, do you think, or is that just about people?
It's just about people that
yeah.
just do not want to give people with disability an apartment, or
Right.
they just treat them different because they're disabled.
Right.
And it's sad. It's actually sad.
Yeah.
And what we do is, if we can continue to get after them, if we continue to get in their pocket, then what'll happen is it'll make a change.
They stop, right? No, that's right. Money speaks very loudly in that context.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, great to have you guys here. Good work.
Thank you.
What you're doing. Yeah.